Once upon a time, in a cozy little town, surrounded by green hills and the silver shimmer of the Weser River, there was a place called Hamelin. Hamelin was famous for its sweet-smelling bakeries, bright flower gardens, and cobblestone streets where children played from sunrise to sunset. The people of Hamelin loved their town deeply, but one summer, something strange began to happen. It started with a small rustle in the kitchen, then a squeak, then another. Before long, hundreds of rats had taken over Hamelin. They ran through the bakeries, nibbling on loaves of bread and cheese. They hid under the mayor's desk and even danced across the church floor during Sunday prayers. The townspeople tried everything: traps, cats, even loud music to scare them away. But the rats were too clever. The mayor finally stood up one morning in the town square and shouted, "Whoever can rid our town of these rats will earn a great reward: gold, food, and the thanks of Hamelin forever." The crowd cheered, though nobody really believed such a person existed. The very next day, as the mist rose from the river, a tall, mysterious man appeared at the edge of town. He wore a long cloak made of colorful ribbons, red, green, yellow, blue, that shimmered like a rainbow in the morning sun. Over his shoulder hung a small wooden flute, carved with stars and moons. He spoke softly, but his voice carried like music. "Good people of Hamelin," he said with a smile, "I can rid your town of rats if you will keep your promise of reward." The mayor frowned skeptically. "And how do you plan to do that?" The man simply lifted his flute and said, "With music." The people laughed, but before they could say another word, the man placed the flute to his lips and began to play. It was the strangest, most beautiful sound that townsfolk had ever heard. Soft at first, like the whisper of the wind, then playful, like the patter of raindrops on rooftops. And then something unbelievable happened. From every corner of Hamelin, rats began to appear. Big ones, small ones, gray ones, brown ones, all swaying and squeaking in time with the music. They climbed down chimneys, scurried from barns, and tumbled out of barrels. The piper smiled and walked slowly through the streets, playing his tune. The rats followed him, hundreds, then thousands, as if hypnotized by the melody. He led them out of the town and down to the wide riverbank. When he reached the edge, the piper played one final high note, and the rats leapt into the river, vanishing beneath the ripples. Not a single rat remained in Hamelin. The people cheered, the bells rang, and for the first time in months, Hamelin was peaceful again. When the piper returned to the mayor's office for his reward, the mayor smiled awkwardly. "Well, friend, we thank you kindly, but surely a few coins will do for just playing a tune." The piper frowned. "You made a promise," he said quietly, "and promises must be kept." The mayor laughed and waved his hand. "Promises, promises. We've got a town to rebuild. Off you go, musician." The townspeople, though grateful, said nothing. They turned away, pretending not to see the sadness in the piper's eyes. He bowed his head and whispered, "You may forget your word, but your children will remember mine." Then, without another sound, he walked out of Hamelin, his cloak fluttering behind him. Days passed. The town was happy again, but not for long. One sunny morning, while the church bells rang and parents were busy baking, a new melody floated through the air. It wasn't like the first, not wild or triumphant. This tune was soft, sweet, and full of wonder. Every child in Hamelin stopped what they were doing. They turned toward the sound and smiled. Boys and girls dropped their toys, their books, their loaves of bread, and began walking toward the music. Their steps matched the rhythm perfectly, slow, light, like a dance. From every corner of the town they came, through doors, down stairways, across bridges, following the piper, who played with a gentle, glowing face. He led them through the meadow, where wildflowers bent as if bowing to the melody. The piper led the children to a tall green hill at the edge of the valley, one that shimmered as if touched by sunlight and mist. As he played, the mountain slowly opened, revealing a golden path glowing inside. The children giggled and ran in, one by one, their laughter echoing like tiny bells. But just before the last child entered, the piper paused. He looked back toward Hamelin, toward the parents now running and shouting in the distance. For a moment, he seemed sad. Then he whispered, "A lesson for broken promises, but not a curse." He played one final note, soft as a lullaby, and the mountain closed gently behind them. Days turned into weeks. The parents cried and searched, calling out their children's names from dawn till dusk. Then, one morning, a bright rainbow stretched across the sky, and from the top of the hill, the sound of flute music returned, slow, peaceful, and kind. The mountain opened again, and out came the children, laughing, dancing, carrying wildflowers in their hands. They looked well, happy, and said they had been in a beautiful land full of light, where the piper had taught them songs of kindness, truth, and the power of keeping one's word. The piper stood at the hilltop one last time and spoke to the mayor and people of Hamelin. Music can charm, heal, or teach, but it cannot live where promises die. Keep your word, and harmony will follow. Then, as a golden breeze swept across the grass, the piper vanished, leaving only the sound of his flute echoing in the air. From that day forward, the people of Hamelin changed. The mayor became honest and fair. Parents taught their children to never break a promise. And every evening, when the wind blew softly through the valley, they could still hear faint flute music drifting over the hills, like a lullaby for the whole town. And so, Hamelin lived in peace once more, a town forever reminded that music can bring both joy and truth, and that a promise kept is a song that never ends.